every time my phone rings or I get an unwanted email or I'm being nuisanced in some awful way that I just want to say, go away. No, I don't. I want to say more than go away.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I do. But I don't. And there's around 1.5 billion nuisance calls taking place during the year. James, why? Why? Why are we forced to give out our numbers and our emails and whatever all around for some other person to then get in touch with us?
Are we forced, or actually do we end up in a situation where we don't think our data is going to be shared? And
No, mate, we're forced because I tell you, I don't know how many times I don't want to finish a questionnaire form and it sends it back to me and it goes, this cannot be completed unless you put your phone number in or your
I agree.
email.
Yeah, every time I buy something.
So you're forced. You're absolutely forced.
But it's the way that they then share the data and then the data is used.
Yeah.
So, it should be, you can fill in a form and it goes nowhere else. But a lot of organisations are very focused about getting your information. There's someone called a data broker, and organisations called data brokers. And their job is to build as much information up on you as possible. They build profiles on you and then they sell them on. So when you get those calls where somebody's trying to sell you something, or even scammers, what's happened is they've gone to those organisations, they're buying the information on you under something called legitimate interest. So they can say they think they've got a product that you will want to buy and therefore they can phone you, or text you or email you.
What is so immoral about all of this is look, most youngsters probably can work out how to stop this happening. They'll Google the story. A lot of youngsters can, right? But it's often the elderly who are blighted by these calls. And I'm thinking of the barber.
You're thinking of me.
Well, no, I'm thinking of our barber, our local barber. The sweetest man. He's in his 70s. He's worked in the community all his life. He's there looking after my little boy. Good boy, so kind, so sweet. The phone rings and he's like, I told you to stop calling me. And he's at his wit's end. It's abuse.
So even worse than that, if you end up buying something through that approach, or you even answer the phone call, it's passed on to other people to say that you answer the calls or you buy things. So as soon as you do it, you get more and more.
Is that right? As soon as you give into it. Right, all of that's the problem. James, what is the solution?
Yes.
Do you have the solution?
Yeah, so the easiest way to deal with this is you need to go to the data brokers and you need to object to the processing of your data. Because what happens is that these are the organisations that are selling your information on to the people making the phone call. If you object to processing, they can't sell your data.
But
that's
how do you
really
find a
important
data
bit.
broker?
So there's a few ways. On Rightly, we've got a list of all the organisations.
Rightly, so you Google Rightly.
Google Rightly, and you can quickly submit. The other way is you've got things like the Direct Marketing Association that has lists of all the people that buy and sell data.
OK, and you can also call Rightly. And if you want to note down this number, press pause, quickly grab a pen and come back and then listen. I'll read it out. It's 0303 123 1113. So that's 0303 123 1113. And you can put an end to those nuisance calls. And it's really useful for people to know that because, as I say, this can really ruin people's lives.
It's 9,000 calls a minute that people are receiving.
But why shouldn't there be a way that instead of us opting out, instead of us going to all of this trouble, that we have to opt in?
Yeah, I agree. But the problem is this word legitimate interest. People can buy your data on the basis they think it's applicable to you.
So where's the law for that? I mean, our politicians have created that law?
That's the law. It's under the GDPR Act. We all know that one. We've all heard about it so many times.
What is the GDPR?
General Data Protection Regulations. So it's the way that your data can be used. It came in about 2018.
Awful.
Yeah. And one of the things is in there, legitimate interest. So I can go and say, I think I'm interested in selling people widgets.
Yeah.
I would like a list of people who I think are interested in widgets. I can buy the list and I can use it.
There you go. It's all about money. Money talks.
Well, it does. And do you know what I'm thinking there, just as James is talking? It's how politicians are influenced, how these lobby groups in Parliament will say, well, if you're going to put this bill through, make sure we're looked after in all of this because it's really important that we know everything about everybody out there. And they do. They know more about us than we know about us, really.
Yeah. And the really sad bit from my perspective is you've got situations where you've got elderly, and we talked about it, who just get calls and calls and calls.
Oh.
And as soon as they've accepted one thing, they will accept others. And there are examples of people committing suicide over this.
Awful.
Because they get into the position where they can't afford to live because of it.
Yeah, no, I've seen it with my own eyes. Honestly, the change in poor old Archie, it was just awful.
Yeah.
Really just blighting his life.
And I think also people who've got landlines are going to be older people as well. And, my mother, who's 93, And when her phone rings, it's always, you think it's an incident or, something important, somebody looking for her. And then it's some idiot on the other end who you just, I'm sure they get a lot of abuse, and rightly so. But the other thing, you say that they find out about all that we want and all that we need in our lives. Have you ever had a phone call from anybody with something that you actually really did want or need?
No.
No? I sit and go, why would I be interested in that?
Yeah.
And actually, for your mum, there is an organisation out there called TrueCall.
Called what?
TrueCall.
Spelt?
TrueCall.
This is the first time I've ever seen Eamon actually making notes during an interview, not for questions, but
yeah.
for his own personal use.
Because I'm going to act on this.
Out.
Going to sort this out.
It's a really neat piece of kit. It puts on a landline. When somebody dials in, it puts them to voicemail and says, "Who are you?"
Yes.
And then you get a call to say, "Blah, blah, blah is calling," and you choose to accept or reject it.
Yeah.
Right, well, look, we've put the number on the screen now. Just a reminder, if this affects you, you can call rightly. So it is 0303 123 1113. You don't need to suffer in silence. There are ways of tackling this problem. Let us know if it affects you, and let us know if this helps you out as well. We'd love to hear from you.
Good, James. What we need is more people like you to rightly stand up for all of these things.
That's the time for it.
Good man. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.